What's happening, hardscapers? This is episode 325 of the How to Hardscape podcast, where we talk about how you can start and grow your hardscaping business. And on today's episode, we have returning guest Dan Wasson on the show. We had him on back in late 2020 for an I Am a Hardscaper interview where we do a deep dive into hardscape business owners' businesses. We've also had him on a round table and for another round table rally. So if you listen to this podcast, you've probably heard him before, but we go even deeper today, talking about what he's experienced in his business since we've had him last on, what he's worked on, what he's improved in his 3 locations, his nursery, along with his hardscape landscape installations. You can find them on Instagram at Wasson Nursery. That's spelled Wasson. Also Wasson Landscape Design. And you can follow Dan himself, the.dan.wasson on Instagram. But before we get into today's episode, we want to say thank you to our sponsors. Cycle CPA. If you're looking for bookkeeping, accounting, CFO services, reach out to Cycle CPA at cyclecpa.com. Let them know How to Hardscape sent you for money off their services there. Patio SEO has hopped on board as a sponsor, and they are a leading marketing and brand building company in the hardscape industry. And if you don't know, this company is run by James Reed. We've had him on the podcast a couple of times, some of our more popular episodes, and he owns hardscape businesses across the country. And now you can have access to the same in-house marketing team that he has access to at patioseo.com. So if you're looking for a killer website, targeted ads, or data-driven strategies to grow, check them out at patioseo.com. August 19th to the 20th, Knowledge Tree Consulting is having another event at Koivik. This event is in Toronto. Koivik is in Milton. I went to their event last year with Earthscape. It was awesome. I can't recommend this enough. There's going to be a link in the show notes for you to sign up for it and get 50% off your tickets today. If you're planning to go to Hardscape North America in Louisville, Kentucky, October 22nd to the 24th, you can use promo code VIPHTH to sign up, get 50% off your registration. That also gives us a little bit of a kickback and helps us here at the How to Hardscape podcast. And without further ado, let's get into today's episode. Today, we're joined by Dan Wasson. If you haven't heard of him, we've had him on the show for the I'm a Hardscaper interview where we did a deep dive into his business, Wasson Nursery. And we also had a roundtable with you, Heiner, and Mike from Creekside. And you've also been on some roundtable rallies as well. So, Dan, thank you so much for your time and giving back to our audience here.
Yeah. Hey, Mike, thanks for having me back. Love to be on the show. And you know, I'm passionate about the landscaping industry and glad to be here.
And I also saw you at H&A, which is great. And you talking in front of Zeppa's there. That was awesome. And great to see an actual person there.
Yeah, no, appreciate that. You know, I gotta work on my public speaking skills. That, it gets a little nervous when you're getting up in front of a bunch of people and they're all looking at you. It's easier on a podcast, because I'm just looking at you, and it's easier. So.
Well, you did great there, and I heard from a lot of guys that was awesome. So you got those public speaking chops, that's for sure.
Well, I think that I appreciate that. My whole goal with any of this, like with the podcast and anything that I do outside of here, is just trying to be unscripted as much as I can, and not nothing. That's insulated and produced, just trying to be as real as I can with how we do things and how we got to where we're at.
Yeah, it was interesting. I went back and listened to our first episode, which was from November 2020. So the sort of height of that pandemic time where things were just moving along, easy to close jobs. Dan, what has it been like from 2020 to where we are today, 2025 for you at Wasson Nursery?
It's interesting. We talk about it a lot. It's like, we talk about this time in business where we'll never see that again. At least I don't think I will, of what we actually went through. And, from having to call like the governor's office and just having to call different authorities of like, hey, can we work to what do we have to do to, like I remember we were washing doorknobs, gas handles, can we fit three guys in a truck or two guys in a truck, and do they have to ride by themselves? So it's crazy everything we went through, from dealing with all that, and then you go to the extreme of we couldn't get all the work done. Clients were okay in work, with the extra money they had and the work from home environment and the staycation that was happening. We couldn't keep up, and I think that was like across the whole industry. There's just a wild time. You didn't have to really, sell. It was more like, during that time we would present a drawing and a design and an estimate, and people wouldn't, clients wouldn't say, hey, this is too much. Hey, I want to only do this. Their first question was, when can you start? And so those were wild times, right? That was a brief summary of what we went through. Those were wild times. And you fast forward till like what we really noticed last year, is it was a total opposite. It got tough to sell, and I feel like, that was across the board. Last year, we had to, I think it was in July, we pushed the guys back to like a 4-day week. We chewed through work. I mean, we got really efficient. We chewed through work, and we looked at the counter and we were like, holy cow, it just got thinner than it normally got. Let me rephrase it. It got thinner than it usually had gotten in the past. And I think one thing that COVID era did is, and we were susceptible to it, is it made for some lazy sales. And, it got me in the mindset of all right, we got to go back to the basics of being aggressive on sales. That's who I grew up in the landscape industry, working for Dad, and I was a designer, I was a sales rep, and before, and I don't want to date myself, when I graduated from college, I jumped right in 2003, jumped right into sales and design. That's what I grew up doing it, and I was aggressive. I was, we were, let's get it sold, right? And what COVID did, it made it so easy to sell that I feel like some of my guys, were like, oh man, this is easy, right? And you get to 2024, and you had the incoming election stuff happening, right? And I think that with a lot of other political factors and just things going on in the economy, that really got people saying, hey, hold up a minute, let's really dive into the numbers. Let's really look at this quote. And that got away from us a little bit. We had to get back to the basics of being good at sales. It's not just COVID. You could email things off and hey, you want to do that? Yeah, let's do it. When can you start? Now it's back to like, let's get in front of them face to face. Let's go through the details. There's a lot of changes right now with designs and all that. So it's back to pre-COVID stuff. Like it's not fish in a barrel anymore. Like just like shooting fish in a barrel. It's not that anymore. And that's what really we really noticed that in 2024. Where it was like that shift, and a lot of other landscape companies I talked to, they were kind of going through the same thing as we were. It was just a longer process. It was back to kind of normal, I guess.
What were some things, the aspects you did mention a couple there, like actually showing up and showing them the design, but what were some things that you had to talk to your sales team? And just clarify for us, sales, are they also the designers? Are the designers doing the sales, or sales is separate from design?
Yeah, so sales and design are the same. In my office, sales and design are the same. So the biggest one was getting in front of them in person. I've got some younger sales designers, and I think there's a reliance on just a quick text sometimes, and or an email, and not getting in front of them with either a phone and voice or setting a meeting. And I think that was the biggest thing was, you know, get back to calling Mrs. Smith on the phone and talking her up, and not just about trying to sell it. Like, all right, find a common ground. It's winning people over. That's what their job is as sales and design, is winning people over. And you got to get back to that. And I think it's really easy to, especially in today's technology, it's really easy to shoot a text message over, because you don't have to put a lot of thought into it. You don't have the pressure of someone staring back at you. And I think we got really used to text and emails. And now it's like, guys, all right, if you're going to text them, you're going to text them, and then you're going to call them, after you send the message, and you're going to confirm they got that. Or if you send an email, you're going to send an email, then you're also going to call and say, hey, Mrs. Smith, I just sent that quote over. I want you to take a look at it. I'd like to meet you next week. I've got these dates open and available if you'd like to meet. So it's really just, it sounds complicated, but it's really simple. We just had to get back to being real people, being available and in front of people. And and it works. It's at the time when we were going through that whole COVID era deal, that was the mindset. It worked. We found ways to work. And as all that is gone now, it's, you have to be available, and you have to be, human and personal. And I think getting people off that mindset of don't be a robot, and that's what I joke around upstairs with. I'm like, guys, we're not robots here. All right, call them, get in front of them. I want them to hear the excitement and see the excitement as you're presenting the design. But that's the really hard thing about it, is it was so simple.
You've got Wasson Nursery, where they can come in and possibly see a design, but definitely like see your displays and the pavers and everything. You've also got, you could go over to their place and present the design. But we've also got this Zoom, where you can present the design.
Yeah.
Do you give them options, or do you try to steer them one way or the other when you're trying to present that design?
So the designers, they have a lot of freedom to make those decisions with the client. I think some of it is client's availability. We're working around their schedule, and we want to be, that's the most important thing, is their schedule. So I think the best success is getting in front of them at their house or here at their conference room, and letting them see the emotion and the excitement that we have for the design that we've created. I think that's like our first option, right? That's the best option, in my opinion. The second one would be a Zoom like this. And just last week I was upstairs, and Britt, one of my designers, he was on a Zoom with a client that they were doing a lot of traveling. And we're, of course, everything's digital. So we've got a real neat packet that that's a link that we send over, that links all the estimates, the design, the plant pictures, job pictures. So we've got a really neat package that to get out to people too, to be more digital and more digital friendly, so you can have it on your phone. So those are our two most preferred ways, of course. So I'm really pushing people to get in front of people. I want my sales in front of people if we can.
That packet that you send over with all those links, what does that include? You did touch on it briefly there. So the design, they can click a link, they can see it. The plant products, any paver product links and things
Yep.
like that, and then portfolio and more about the company, anything like that.
Yep. It has. I mean, all that in there. I didn't also mention, it also has a 3D packet in there. If the client has chosen a a design fee that includes a 3D. It'll have a 3D in there as well. So our marketing team has put that together. It's kind of I don't know exactly what it is, but they found a hosting site that we can manipulate very easily and put documents into and create kind of a view. And I'll send that over to you so you can take a look at that. But that's been handy as well to get, because it's a lot of documents sometimes to get in front of people. And especially if we're doing, if we are doing a Zoom, we can't meet in person. We like to, for them to have it digitally as well. And this is if we meet in person too. We give them this because a lot of times after one of our meetings, you're at dinner with friends and you want to show off what you're getting estimated. And we found that it's good to have it on your phone, of course.
We want to take a break from today's episode to talk about marketing. Are you looking to take your hardscape business to the next level? Well, this is brought to you by Patio SEO, the leading marketing and brand building company in the hardscape industry. And if you don't know, this company is run by James Reed, who owns multiple hardscape businesses across the country. And here's the kicker. You're not just getting access to any team. You're getting access to the very team that helped grow James's own companies, plus hundreds of others in the industry. Whether you need a killer website, targeted ads, or data-driven strategies to grow, Patio SEO has got you covered. They've been in your shoes and know exactly what works. We've had James Reed on the podcast a couple of times, and there's some of our more popular episodes, talking about branding, talking about how he's built companies across the country. And with that, he needs lots of leads, which means he's had to perfect his branding and marketing. And now you can have access to that same in-house team that he has access to for his own hardscape company. So if you're ready to build your brand and see some serious growth, check them out at patioseo.com. That's patioseo.com, or follow James on Instagram at road to 100ms. That's road to 100ms. Let's get your business the attention it deserves. Now back to the episode. You did mention that you were super efficient. So going back to those 4 days, you guys were pounding out work. This is something that I wanted to talk to you about. The two-man crews. Do you still run the two-man crews? And what is it about, optimizing that efficiency when it comes to a two-man crew, and what you do beyond that to improve efficiency for those crews?
So last time we talked, I was a big believer in the two-man crew. I still am. I mean, that's how we've geared our trucks. I don't run a lot I think I might have one truck that might be a crew cab. But other than that, most of our trucks are a single cab F650 gas engine, and all the tools are on the truck. And I got to give credit due. I copied this idea from Marty Grunder. I went to, I forget what they're called, where you can tour his facility.
Oh, the Grow event?
It wasn't a Grow event. It was, I don't know if he still does it, but it was an event that you could go and you could do a tour of just his deal, his facility. And then you have some meetings of how they run processes. But I copied that truck, made some mods to it, but it's pretty much, a lot of it was his idea. I added some different things to it. But all their tools are there, right? So their wheelbarrows sit on the fin. All their hardscape tools can fit right in this locker. The truck's got a dump and a lift gate. All right. The lift gate is key because if sometimes you got to go to a job and you don't have, maybe you don't need equipment, like a mini skid or a skid at the time. The lift gate, lifts 2,000 pounds. If you need to get something in and out of the truck, it fits on the side. It tucks up underneath the bed. It's super efficient. The trucks have barn door back doors because I don't like the fold down because those always get banged up by the trailer. So you have the swinging barn door. So I'm really proud of those. They look good on the when you're on the street when you see a bunch of those together. But the two-man crew I think is your most efficient crew. There's times where could I take a really big job and put 6 guys on it? Yeah, but especially at the start of a job. When you're just starting a job, and if you're sending a bunch of guys at the very start of a job, I feel like you're leaving money on the table. And we will start a $300,000 job with two people. Because your first part of setting your grades and marking your lines and just getting your bearings, you don't need six guys to do that. And I'm big on, when you talk about efficiency, the biggest metric that we're looking at is your actual versus your estimated. Because we send a contract, right? So that contract is for, Mrs. Smith, here's your contract for your outdoor living space. And at that point, it's goes from design to production, right? So it's production's job to put that in the most efficient way possible. So their goal at that time is, all right, we have 1,000 hours on this job. How do we do it in under 1,000 hours? Right? And that is, like rule number one. We're not cutting corners. We're following the contract, but now that's where it gets fun. Let's get efficient, and maybe, you found a easier way to remove something, than what was estimated, or, putting the pavers down and excavation and all that goes quicker. You find these little, and also I'll be 100% transparent. We have jobs that go over too, unlike most contractors, it happens, but that's our biggest metric that we're looking at is our actual versus estimated. And I feel like with two guys, that's your best way to achieve it. Because when you put six guys on a job, I feel like you don't get six guys, you don't get the value of the six guys. There's, and when I was on the crew during high school and Dad was running the business, I remember on those jobs, it was fun having a bunch of guys on a job. We were joking around. It's a lot of things can happen, and it's not as well managed, I feel like, with six guys or with seven guys or whatever your crew is. When you have two, it's down to business. There's not a lot of extra hours there of that can be wasted. So now we will send more guys on a large job. So here's an example. If we've got a $300,000 job, we will start with two guys, but at certain points the foreman will say, hey, I'm going to need help today. We've got all the grades set. We've got all, our bases set, and we're ready to lay pavers. So when we're laying pavers, we'll give them some help, because that's a part of the job that we're okay with sending more guys, because you can work more guys at that. There's not a standing around waiting. It's, all right, hey, someone's on the Mini X with the vacuum. We're swinging pavers around from here. I need someone on the skid here. I need someone over here, getting it all set and straight, make sure your lines are straight. So you can work more guys at certain points of the job. But for the most part, they start with two men.
That answers kind of my next question. Do you have, in those situations, do you just pull two guys that are on another job and bring them over there? Or do you have like some rover that fills in, especially if somebody that calls in sick and you've only got one guy on that job site now?
So we've got set crews. So you got a foreman and a right-hand man.
Okay.
And, that's the crew. And then we have a group of guys that we call floaters. And those guys, someone comes in sick, that guy can rotate up there and help out. Or this two-man crew needs an extra truck to go because they got more material to go. This guy can help with that. We also can pull guys from the maintenance department. So maintenance department has a bunch of good guys there too. So if we get in a pinch, and vice versa, it goes, we've kind of cross-trained both ways a little bit. So if hardscape and construction needs help, we can pull from maintenance. If maintenance needs help, especially during Memorial Day, we're getting ready for, a lot of the jobs are just, edging, doing a spring visit, edging, mulching, getting ready for that. We pressed pause on a few hardscape jobs because these guys are in a pinch, and I swung the construction teams over, and they helped mulch. So we have some flexibility with maintenance and construction, and we have some floating team members too that help swing in and help.
So hardscape and say like softscape, planting and that, do they mix as well? Like, can your two guy crews also do the plantings and so on, or do you have softscape crews that come in and do that?
So a little bit of both. All the hardscape guys, all the hardscape crews, if they need to keep, with timing, if a softscape crew is busy, all the hardscape guys can continue to do the softscape.
Okay.
All right. Normally, what happens is they finish a hardscape job and they'll go to the next hardscape job, and then the softscape crew will come in. But that's where we've just not let them do just construction. They can do the softscape piece too. So there's some jobs where especially like your softscape is not that much, and sometimes it doesn't make sense to bring a whole nother crew in if Oscar and Carlos can they've knocked out the patio. 2 more days, they're going to knock out the landscape and be done. So we'll evaluate it like that. If there's a bunch of landscape, then they're going to go to the next hardscape job, and we'll bring a softscape crew in.
And how do you keep this all organized where guys come in and they know exactly what they're doing and where they're going? I've seen stories of your calendar board and the magnetic notes that can move around and so on and so forth. But how does this machine stay efficient in that sense? The scheduling, the where they're going, what they're doing.
It takes. I got a lot of good people. It takes. There's a lot of good people in the office behind the scenes that like Annie in scheduling. We have Aubrey. That's a project manager. All the designers are down in the morning. I've got. I'm going to miss people, but it's in the morning. When you have to cut some of this out because I'm trying to think of my words here. Okay, so how do we stay efficient in running this whole program? Is everything is set the night before. All right, and especially if you're on longer jobs, those are already kind of pre-planned out. Okay, but Annie in scheduling has everything the day before. So every crew has a clipboard and an iPad and their documents all ready to go every morning. So every morning we do roll call at 7:30. We pass out the tablets. They clock into their tablets, and they go to their, like if you're meeting with Britt or you're meeting with Josh, you go. Your job is Josh's job. You go to Josh, and he's the designer. He helps get you out. Larger projects run through Aubrey, which is our project manager. So she handles all that. It's not just one person. It's several people are all working together to get these guys out. One big change that we did from 2020 to now is we now run on the Aspire platform, which is all our scheduling, estimating, all our data in the background is all that, and that's part of the, I think it's called Crew Mobile now. That's all the guys are clocked into that. So that's part of the process now is they're all clocked into an iPad. They go to get their orders. They go over what they have to go over, and they get out. They load and get out. It's really efficient if they're already on the job, of course, because there's not much to go over. They do a checkup, and they grab what they need for that day and they get out. Those go out quicker. But we've built a new facility since 2020. I'm really big on the morning process of being prepared and ready. I think that's like the biggest thing anyone can do to return money to the bottom line, to beat your actual versus estimated. Is a lot of it is so much low hanging fruit of your job is staged and ready. Like, does it have if you come here, you would see like all our plants have like Mrs. Smith got her name in front of it. All the pallets and the boulders that go to that job are already staged and ready. So we go out that first day and we say, all right, here's your plants. Here's Mrs. Smith's skids. Here's their boulders. They're all ready to go. Like, these are kind of like, I've always joking around here in the morning of like make things brainless. All right. You want these guys, on the job, making good decisions, and you only have so much mental bandwidth, and then you're done for the day, right? Like, you have a bad day, you have a really busy day, you're done. And I want these guys focused on the job. I don't want them to worry about, okay, where do I have to go to get these 10 boxwoods? Where do I have to go to, where's Mrs. Smith's skids? We don't worry about any of that. It is set up and ready to go. And that's the biggest thing. If you would be here right now, I could take you around and we've got topsoil, dry topsoil in a barn. We don't have to worry about it getting wet. It's always in stock. We have all the mulches, all the stone, all the open graded stone, everything's here. So when they're loading, it's brainless. And I want them worrying about the job, not where things are at.
We want to take a break from today's episode to thank our sponsor, Cycle CPA. It's crucial to review your financial statements on a monthly basis so you can diagnose areas for improving your business's financial health early before they become significant issues. Too many contractors wait until the end of the year to review their financials as they file taxes, when it's often too late to take action to change the outcome. Cycle CPA not only handles bookkeeping and taxes, but they also ensure that you're armed with financial data on a monthly basis to make key business decisions. They offer benchmarking, cash flow forecasting, and assistance in developing targets for financial metrics. With their team of accountants specialized in the hardscape and landscape industry, they currently work with hundreds of companies in this field. Visit cyclecpa.com, and for $200 off, mention the How to Hardscape podcast. Now back to our episode. The new facility, quite a big investment to make. What was the reasoning behind making that new investment? And is it in a new location, or is it in one of your 3 already set up nurseries?
It's in my Muncie location. That's where all our services run out of. We got 14 acres here. We tore down a couple smaller barns, and we built. It's kind of a joke. I always wanted like a huge barn, and we got to calling it the mega barn. And that's what it is. I mean, it's a massive. It looks good. It's a massive barn. We've got a ton of equipment and storage space, and there's also an added office where it houses all the designers, project managers, account managers. All the internal staff, executive teams are out of here as well, and it was a game changer. And it was a huge investment, but where we were at before is on the property. We were in a house, right? It was a house, old farmhouse that came with the property, and I had 15 people crammed into this office, like one bathroom, just a creaky old farmhouse. And converted bedrooms. I used to live there too, actually. Converted bedrooms into offices. I mean, I had people crammed everywhere. I mean, they were in closets, and it got to the point of like, all right, the main goal is to grow and create a scalable business that people want to work at. I want the crew and the people in the office to be proud of what we've created and that they work here. And it's hard to get that feeling when you're in this, where when you're in this little office, and those are the kind of the fun stories of like, hey, we started here, right? And then look where we're going. So huge investment, I think, is a huge recruiting tool. It's a huge morale boosting deal of, keeping things nice and clean and organized, and it's also, you want your team to be confident and excited of where you're going. And we built this facility to look nice, to be efficient with the crews, to have good office space for the staff. And we have room to grow. So it was the next phase of where we're heading. And we didn't talk much about it, but like the shop space is, I've got huge doors. The big crew trucks pull in here. It's a drive-through. I've got all my equipment under a roof that we can get in here. We got pallet racks on the side, so it's efficient for them getting out of here too. They can pull right through, load things that we have, like all the nitrous sand and concrete. It's all here ready to go.
Does it help having a nursery that you supply pavers also at the nurseries, and does it help having that to be able to, and especially the plants, of course, to be able to get those crews in and out and always have inventory in stock for them to pull from?
Absolutely. I mean, we so let me back up a little bit. So Wasson Nursery, all right. We used to grow a long time ago. I mean, back when Dad started in the '70s, we were growing a little bit. But as we grew in the services department, when in construction and in maintenance, you know, we had to make a choice of not growing basically. So we don't grow anymore. The only things we grow some stuff in the greenhouse, we grow some annuals, but everything else we order in now. Um, so, but to go back on your question of, all having all those plants ready to go and here and inventorying everything is part of our success. We don't. I'm not sending guys to the local stone yard or the local nursery to pick things up. I get them all delivered here, or I get them delivered to the job site because I want those guys working on the job, not driving, to pick things up and then to like drive back to the job. So as far as efficiencies, yes, everything is delivered here or job site, stone, gravel, dirt, plants, it's all here.
And maybe I should have asked this a little bit sooner, but for context, how many crews do you have in terms of hardscape and on the maintenance side of things? I'm sure this is probably overwhelming to ask right now, but a little bit of a ballpark as to how big the company is there.
I think because some of the crews can bounce around a little bit. There's 5 to 6 hardscape crews.
Okay.
Okay. And then there's about 7 to 8 maintenance crews.
And then the behind the scenes, how many employees do you have to support them? Sales, design, scheduling, admin, so on there.
Oh gosh. Okay. About 28.
28. Wow.
So total company is around, we did about 14 million last year. Design build was about 6 of that. We had, a little over 1 million in enhancements. We had around 3 in maintenance. We have a retail division that does around 3. Throw in some other divisions there. We do some chemical apps, some lawn care, $1 million in chemical apps. So, it's exciting. We're growing. We're looking at things that of where we want to invest in and grow. And so, yeah.
And then, kind of last question along those same lines. You mentioned executives. How many executive positions, quote unquote, are there, and what do they? Let's start there, and then I'll ask the follow up to that.
So I'm technically CEO. I'm probably not a traditional CEO because I don't like to sit behind a desk. I like to be on the job sites. And remind me, we can talk a little bit about my role and how it's changed. But I have a COO. Andy is great. I mean, operationally, he is really helping out with efficiencies and how to run things. And it's nice to be able to offload some things onto his schedule. We have a CFO. Which is working on that on the financial side, with our other accounting department personnel of just looking at the numbers and trying to look forward and not backward on things, and then my wife is in the marketing department, so she's like a chief marketing officer for us. So I would say those are our four biggest spots on the executive side.
So, especially those positions, when did you feel like we need a COO, a COO, or a CFO, or CMO? At what point in time did it become clear that, or was somebody already taking on those duties and responsibilities, and it was like, hey, you know what? We're upgrading you to this position because you're basically already doing it. Yeah, and you just formalized it in terms of giving them the position and title. How did those roles kind of evolve and come available at Wasson Nursery?
That's a really good question. I think, as the business grew, And I think that, like, as an owner, you can do a lot of those things, right? But are you going to be like good at them? And I think, I'm putting my trust and my faith in people, because it takes people to run and build this business, right? And I had a client, which is a mentor of mine, that we still do his work today, and he was always he was always giving me, he had a really big business. He was always giving me advice on how to do things. And he's like, Bud, one of the biggest pieces of advice I can tell you is, find good people and hire them. And he goes, the biggest thing, he's like, stay out of their way. And I think, that's kind of been a little bit of our success is I'm trying to find really good people that are smarter than me, of course. That's always been the joke, is like, hire people smarter than you. And so, that's been a key to our success, is getting things off of my plate and getting things off of my dad's plate, because I think, we were really good at getting to the business to a certain part by ourselves, with no CFO, with no operations guy, and I there's a joke that we kind of joke around here. Despite our best efforts, we were successful, and it's a joke because we made tons. Tons of mistakes. I could go on and on and on with the mistakes we've made, but I think the things where we got good at is starting to realize, like, hey, you know what? I'm not good at this, and I don't want to keep stressing and letting people down, and work until 10 o'clock every night. So, hiring people that are smarter than you and putting them in a spot and giving them clear direction on, hey, this is your job duty. This is what we need you here to do. And then, like, staying out of their way. Like, and it's something that, I'll be honest, like, I still struggle with it sometimes, because, like, I used to do a lot of this stuff, right? And I used to do a lot of what, like what Andy does for us. I used to buy a lot of the equipment and help figuring out things, on the production side. And he's doing that now, which he's doing a great job. And sometimes he'll say, hey, is that the best use of your time? Like, that's him reminding me of like, hey, get out of my way and go do something else. So, I don't know if I answered your question or not on when we noticed it, but it's hard to tell you, like, what dollar amount we noticed it at. I think it was more of, it's not fun running a business if that's all you're doing. Like if when I was younger, I was working till midnight on designs. I remember being in the office at midnight on designs, and I look back and, like, that was fun for a minute, but like, you're doing it alone. So if you want to grow and scale, it takes people. And that was the goal, is to grow and scale and work with a bunch of fun people and problem solve. And that's what we are. We're mostly problem solvers. And so, yeah, that's kind of how we've gotten there, is hiring good people and trying to recognize what we're not good at.
Knowledge Tree Consulting, George and Peter of Oriole Landscaping. You've heard me talk about them on previous episodes. They have an event coming up August 19th to the 20th. This is going to be a behind-the-scenes tour of Koivik, a second-generation multi-division firm known for operational excellence and exceptional results. I went to a Knowledge Tree Consulting event last year. That was with Earthscape. You've heard me have Sam Bauman on from that business, and this was a really great event. I cannot recommend this enough. The first day, there's going to be a welcome reception and an optional networking dinner. The next day, early in the morning, departing for Koivik, doing the facility tour, which includes the shop, soil production, specimen tree nursery, office operations, and client experience. So you rotate through those different areas. And then after that facility tour, back at the hotel, there's going to be strategy sessions and then an evening dinner. This is in Toronto. The shop is in Milton. And there's going to be a link in the show notes for you to get 50% off your tickets through the How to Hardscape podcast. So click that link, learn more about that event, and register today. Where's the cutoff, especially let's say operations, where you used to handle that? You mentioned buying the equipment or any other tasks where maybe your COO was just starting and he was doing something different than what you would have done. Do you correct? Do you let him make a mistake? Do you, or maybe it's not even a mistake, maybe it's just different than what you would have done? What's the cutoff in being like, hey, I wouldn't do it that way, I would do it this way? Or, you know what, just like you said, let them take it and hands off, and let them make the mistake? Or really with any position in the business?
I think, with most positions, I'm a big fan of mistakes. Okay. Because I think that's how like iron sharpens iron, right? I made a ton of mistakes all through the business, all through growing up in learning sales and, even on the crew. So I think like you got to let people make some mistakes. And I think it comes down to like good coaching and good leadership on top of that, because you don't want to micromanage them. You don't want to do it for them. And I don't want to see them fail, but also you gotta give them a little bit of room. So if someone's going to make a massive mistake, I'm going to be like, hey, we're going to lose a bunch of money. Don't do that. But it's also some education in that, and sometimes we'll say like, hey, if you were me, what would you do? You gotta get them thinking like you a little bit. And so I would tell you that for the most part, I've got good relationships with everyone here, and we like to, let them kind of run. I'm a fan of mistakes because I think it just makes them really good. And you gotta get through. That's the hard part about hiring. You got to get through that new part of where they are going to make mistakes. And I think another part that that I struggle with is like even right now, like I've given up a lot of I used to take a lot of appointments, right? Before I was CEO, I was the lead designer. So, a lot of appointments would come to me from builders or from other landscape architects or people who knew me, like, hey, Dan, I got this client. I need you to go see him. They want a big design. And I was taking a lot of those, right? And I like the chase of the sale. I like solving a problem. So it's a good combo when you're a landscape designer and you can do all that, right? And you're solving this problem and you come in as the hero. Well, I'm not doing as much of that anymore because I'm passing that off, because I've got Josh and I've got Kylie and I've got Britt. But the problem is if I keep doing that, they don't ever learn to do that. And I want them to be able to, like, the biggest goal is if I can replicate myself, that would be in sales, that would be huge. So, the best way to do that is to like coach them through it. So when I'm getting these certain calls, I'm like, all right, I'll hand this over to Josh, and sometimes I'll go with him on the appointment, and help just kind of, bring everybody together. But I would say that's the part I probably struggle with the most is not being in that as much, because that's the part I like that part. So the part I'm still doing, I'm still on job sites a lot. I love going to job sites. We're working on our project managers. Aubrey is great. She's one of our project managers, and we're still training her on certain things, her to learn the hardscape way of things, and so I'm on a lot of job sites still doing that. But I don't have as much customer interaction, so trying to learn through that process has been tough. But I'm also letting them handle it too.
That somewhat answers my last question for you because we've already gone over our time a little bit here, Dan. But your day to day, what does it look like? Your roles and responsibilities there, in terms of being the CEO, even though you don't like that role so much as a title there.
Yeah, you know, yeah, it's the title's just kind of weird to me because I like doing a lot of the things. I like being involved, and I would say like my day to day is we get the crews out at 7:30. Um, I'm usually here for roll call, and if you would follow me around in the morning, I basically ask everybody if they're okay or what they need. So like this morning I was walking around and this is not the office staff, but even like the mechanic and the crew loading. I'll be like, Chewy, you okay? What do you need? And he'll give me a thumbs up, or he might say, hey, my trail lights aren't working. And I'm like, all right, get over to Dennis. So I'm kind of like directing a little bit of traffic, in the morning, and it's busy, and I like helping out there. I like trying to figure out if what people need, because I think my job is to clear hurdles for people, for my staff, and I think that's the biggest thing I learned is I'm not clearing hurdles for me anymore. I'm clearing hurdles for my staff, so they have a good work environment. So all morning, I'm answering questions from designers to project managers to crew, scheduling. I'm kind of just, I'm present to clear hurdles. As we get through the middle of the day, me and Andy have some meetings based around some, Aspire is new to us. We're a little over a year, so we're still learning a lot of the back end of that technology. And so we look at some efficiencies on that. We look at how do we get better on Aspire. We look at, we're looking at, tablet efficiency, just, things like that. I do a lot of estimate reviews. So instead of being the one designing it, I'm doing a lot more of, we get it to a point in the design process where it's quoted, it's ran through the estimator. They've got all the notes and the preliminary estimate done, and then they bring me in and we go through, we put it up on a screen, we go through all the phases, and I ask a lot of questions of like, hey, I don't see, you don't have your transformer located. Where's your transformer going? And is there any removals? What are we missing? I'm asking big picture things on the estimate, so it can go from that point to the client's hands. So I'm doing more of that type stuff. And then like today, after we're done here, we got a couple of larger jobs that we're on the tail end of finishing that I'm going to take the guys some drinks, and I'm going to kind of walk the job and just see what I can, if I notice anything that we've got to go back and look at, give advice to the project manager, give advice to the foreman, give advice to the designer. If I see things that like, hey, we could have done this a little bit differently next time, don't put that plant there, move it. This plant requires more shade, or, hey, I don't like this cut. So, there's a lot of things like that I'm still doing, which I really like to do. So I'll hit job sites, and then that'll probably be my day today.
Well, I've got more than enough questions for round three. So if you've ever wanted
Love
to
to.
come back, I would love to have you back on.
Yeah.
Where can our audience go find out more about you, yourself, Wasson Nursery, wherever you want to send them to?
We got our website, wassonnursery.com. We've got Wasson Nursery Design Builds on Instagram. There's also Wasson Nursery Inc. on Instagram, and then there's me, the Dan Wasson. If you don't mind seeing pictures of sometimes of me and my kids and different plants and all kinds of hardscape stuff. That's one thing I've noticed too. As I've gotten busier in this role, I've found it challenging to find enough time to put a lot of things on Instagram. It's harder. It's definitely, I don't know how some of these guys do it. When you talk to like Richard Carroll and Andy Mulder, like those guys I can't keep up with them.
Yeah.
So yeah, they can find me. You can find me there. I get a lot of messages. I try to help out when I can of different questions on social media. So yeah, love helping out, and yeah, let's do another one. I got to figure out how to go mobile with you and take you on a little tour of the shop.
That would be really cool. Yeah, maybe we can set that up next time and do a
man.
little shop tour there. Or
Yeah.
actually, I would love to come out and actually do a shop tour in person. I think that would be great.
Yeah, dude. Are you going to H&A this year?
Yep. Yeah. Are you?
Yeah.
Hey, are you planning to attend HNA Hardscape North America October 22nd to the 24th in Louisville, Kentucky? Well, you can use our promo code VIPHTH to get 50% off your tickets, or you can click the link in the show notes below to register for this. I've gone the past 2 years. It is awesome. A massive trade show along with the Equip Exposition with more than 1,000 exhibits, 42,000 square feet hardscape house, as well as a 30 plus acre outdoor demo yard that you can demo equipment. There's the H&A Awards ceremony. There's lots of educational sessions throughout the day, and there's more than enough events before and after the trade show itself. I've always enjoyed my time. I'll see you there. Use the code VIPHTH to get 50% off your tickets and register sooner rather than later because tickets do increase leading up to the show. Thank you for listening to today's podcast episode. Go give Dan a follow there. the.dan.wasson, spelled Wasson. Also Wasson Nursery and Wasson Landscape Design on Instagram to see the beautiful work that they put together and some behind the scenes stories. And before we leave you, we want to say thank you to our sponsors. Cycle CPA. If you're looking for bookkeeping, accounting, CFO services, reach out to Cycle CPA at cyclecpa.com. Let them know How to Hardscape sent you for money off their services there. PatioSEO.com. And now you know Patio SEO can take your hardscape business to the next level. James Reed and his expert team have built a reputation on success, not just for their own companies, but for hundreds of others just like yours. So don't wait. Visit PatioSEO.com to learn more and get started. But also be sure to follow James's journey on Instagram at Road to 100 M's. That's Road to 100 MS for behind the scenes tips and insights. And I do recommend checking that out and following along to that. Ready to build your brand? Patio SEO is here to help you every step of the way. August 19th to the 20th, Knowledge Tree Consulting is having another event at Koivik. This event is in Toronto. Koivik is in Milton. I went to their event last year with Earthscape. It was awesome. I can't recommend this enough. There's going to be a link in the show notes for you to sign up for it and get 50% off your tickets today. If you're planning to go to Hardscape North America in Louisville, Kentucky, October 22nd to the 24th, you can use promo code VIPHTH to sign up, get 50% off your registration. That also gives us a little bit of a kickback and helps us here at the How to Hardscape podcast. And we look forward to meeting you next week on the How to Hardscape podcast.